You think you failed. You believe life punished you, that something went wrong, that all your effort was for nothing. But what if I told you that what you call failure wasn't punishment, it was a break? A natural mechanism life uses to stop you from continuing down a path that's no longer yours. Not every collapse is destruction. Sometimes it's just the universe saying, stop before you lose yourself completely. Since childhood, you were taught that success is linear, that growing means never stopping, never making mistakes, never falling. But that's a modern illusion. The human being doesn't evolve in a straight line. We grow in spirals, and each turn includes a pause, a setback, a break. Yet society convinced you that stopping means failing, when in truth, it's in that silence that the mind reorganizes everything. Failure isn't the end of the road. It's the moment the body screams what the ego refuses to hear. In psychology, there's a concept called adaptive blockage. It's when the brain, realizing that something is emotionally draining you, begins to create obstacles to protect you. Suddenly, you lose focus, motivation fades, things stop flowing, and you call it bad luck, fatigue, failure. But in reality, it's your nervous system saying, this is no longer aligned with who you are. Failure, more often than not, is your mind's way of asking you to stop. The human brain was shaped through evolution to avoid suffering and conserve energy. It seeks coherence. It wants your thoughts, emotions, and actions to exist in harmony. When you force yourself to continue something that no longer matches what you feel, cognitive dissonance appears. It's when the mind lives one reality, but the heart lives another. That creates such deep discomfort that your body starts sabotaging your movement. You procrastinate, get distracted, lose rhythm. But that's not laziness, it's self-protection. Your emotional system is trying to stop you before collapse happens. That's why, in many cases, failure comes right after a period of intense effort. The mind can no longer bear the weight of sustaining something without purpose. What you call a fall, psychology calls a regulatory mechanism. It's how life brings you back to your center, even through pain. Think of the times when everything seemed to go wrong at once. The project that fell apart, the relationship that broke, the opportunity that slipped away. You felt lost, directionless, convinced you had failed. But after a while, you noticed something strange. That loss pushed you exactly where you needed to be. That job ending made you discover a new passion. That love ending taught you to truly see yourself. That failed plan created space for something you'd never have planned on your own. These aren't coincidences. They're the ways life interrupts paths that were already making you sick. The problem is that the ego interprets every interruption as rejection, but the unconscious understands it as course correction. Failure, when observed from afar, is the map of your true evolution. It's the point where life forced you to stop living on autopilot. There's something profoundly therapeutic about failure, something few people see. It destroys the illusion of control, and control is the hardest emotional addiction to break. Psychology calls it resistance to the unpredictable, the tendency to believe we're only safe when everything goes as planned. But life, in its chaotic intelligence, knows that excessive control is the root of modern anxiety. That's why it creates forced pauses, ruptures, mistakes, detours, to remind you that nothing is ever fully under your control. Failure is a form of imposed humility. It brings you back to reality. It forces you to face what you've been ignoring: fear, fatigue, imbalance. It returns you to vulnerability. And from vulnerability, clarity is born. That's why the wisest people don't run from failure. They listen to it. They know every time life made them stop, it was to protect them from losing themselves completely. When everything falls apart, you have two choices: resist or understand. To resist is to try rebuilding the same castle that already collapsed. To understand is to accept it was never meant to stand that way. Emotional maturity begins when you stop calling protection punishment. When you realize life doesn't slow you down to hurt you, it slows you down to align you. Next time something goes wrong, instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is life trying to stop me from forcing?" Because sometimes it takes something away only to make room for what's real. And what looks like a delay is often perfect timing. You're just not ready yet to see what's being prepared. Failure is the interval between who you were and who you're becoming. And that interval, as painful as it is where consciousness is born. From a neuropsychological perspective, every significant loss activates the social pain circuit, the same one that reacts to rejection or exclusion. But over time, that same circuit is rewired for emotional learning. That's why pain is a silent teacher. It restructures how you see the world, and most importantly, how you see yourself. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's an essential part of emotional and cognitive regulation. Every time you fail, the brain creates new connections, redraws its strategies, and strengthens your tolerance to frustration. Mistakes are the soil where wisdom grows. Pain has a biological purpose, to slow down the body so the mind can reorganize. And when you try to escape that process, repeating the same patterns, life increases the strength of the break. Because what you refuse to learn through reflection, life will teach you through repetition. Maybe you never truly failed. Maybe you were just forcing something that no longer fit your story. Life doesn't knock you down, it bends you. And in that bend, emotional flexibility is born. Maturity is realizing that falling is part of the natural rhythm of growing. No tree grows in a straight line. They all bend toward the light. And sometimes your fall is just a necessary curve to help you see the sun from a different angle. The strongest people you know aren't the ones who never failed. They're the ones who understood the meaning of failure, who turned "it didn't work" into "it wasn't time yet," who learned to see collapse not as punishment, but as life's secret code. And maybe right now, life is asking that of you. Silence, pause, observation, not as surrender, but as respect for the process. Because maturity is when you stop reacting and you start understanding. When you grasp the meaning of the break, fear disappears, and what once looked like an ending becomes simply redirection. Not every loss is ruin. Not every mistake is failure. Sometimes it's just life saying, "Don't run, this isn't your path yet." What you call delay is often the time life gives you to meet yourself again. If you want to keep exploring the pauses, the pains, and the silences of the human mind, subscribe and keep descending with me into the depths of real psychology.